Part 42. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-san Buletinji. Chapter 434. Next, Angzi also retaliated with a few passes to Paul George and John Wall, but John Wall's offensive desire was not strong. After receiving the ball and breaking through, he passed the ball back to Angzi. At the end of the game, the East Division, led by Angzi and Paul George, equalized the score. After halftime, the East and the West scored a huge score of 82 ties. Angzi scored 25 points in the half, in addition to 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. It was already the best in the East and West. In the CCTV live broadcast room, director Zhang and Yujia have begun to imagine the scene where Angzi won the All-Star MVP. However, at the beginning of the second half, the main players from the East and the West played. Angzi and Paul George stayed off the court to rest. The main players from the West made a burst of strength, and the points difference was once again opened. The Eastern All-Stars have always been unable to beat the Western Conference. The Western Conference won the All-Star game by 5 points in 13 years, the Western Conference won 3 points in 12 years, and the Western Conference won in 11 years. The Western Conference won by 5 points. The Eastern Conference finally won once in 10 years. But many stars in the West were absent that time, including Kobe, who did not play due to injury. Pushing forward, in the 2009 All-Star Game, the West had a 27-point victory over the East, and in 2007 it was also a 21-point victory. Since the new century, the East has only won the All-Star Game 4 times, while the West has won. In 10 of them, 2 big victories and most of the duels were won. The Western troops will always be stronger than the Eastern troops. And now, the situation on the court is also developing like this. With the continuous scoring of Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry, the West team widened the point difference. Then, the two teams changed into substitute stars and played a wave, and the difference between the points was even greater. After all, the biggest gap between the East and the West lies in the substitutes. The West is not enough substitutes, and many talented stars cannot be selected for the All-Stars. The Eastern Conference has too many substitutes, and every year there are plenty of All-Star players, such as Roy Hibbert this year. With the final 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the West team led the East team by 16 points. At this time, the two teams were back in the starting lineup. Angzi's data is still 25 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists and 2 steals. At this time, LeBron James's data has become 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals and 1 block. The data has completely crushed Angzi. Up. After the main players played, LeBron James mustered up his fighting spirit and started chasing points. If you want to win the All-Star MVP, you must win. This is already the default rule in the All-Star game. Therefore, James, who has the highest scoring in the East, began to encourage his friends to defend and chase points crazy. Although Angzi is not a friend of James, he also followed crazy defense and crazy chasing points, because Angzi also wanted the All-Star MVP trophy. In the first attack of the main force in the fourth quarter, LeBron James directly broke through with the ball, rushed into the inside and pressed Griffin to complete the dunk, scoring 2 points, and the difference was reduced to 14 points. But then, the Western troops were not to be outdone. Kevin Durant scored a 3-pointer from the outside, and the difference became 17 points. Instead, he expanded the latest chapter of Lightning Summoner again. Durant was defended by James himself, but failed to prevent it. James cursed his mother, took the ball again, and then still resolutely broke through. But at this time, the defensive strength of the West troops also came up, they directly double-teamed James. www.mianhuatang.la Marshmallow Novel. Under double teaming, James thought of passing the ball. At this time, Angzi slipped out of the bottom line and got an open chance from outside the 3-point line. LeBron James hesitated, and finally passed the ball. Angzi received the basketball, fired a shot from the outside line, and hit it with a scream. 28 points. Angzi's scoring is only 2 points behind LeBron James, but considering that James's other data is very high, if the same points, the final MVP will definitely be James, but Angzi did not think so much for the time being. He and James have the same idea. Now the first task is to win, and only after winning can we think about more things. After Angzi hit a three-pointer, the point difference was once again reduced to 14 points. Immediately afterwards, Harden singles Angzi was intercepted. Angzi launched a fast break after the steal, rushed to the front court with a dunk and scored 2 more points. At this point, his scoring has tied James, and the point difference continues to shrink, with only 12 points left. The game became fierce, and the real showdown between the All-Stars and the All-Stars began. Stephen Curry singles Wade, and Wade is also desperate. After the perpetual fake moves, Stephen Curry slams a three-pointer from the outside, and with a bang, Wade interference is in place, and the insider Anthony grabs it. The rebound was directly thrown into the hands of Wade in the front court. The front court was fast break, and Janeway was connected. Wade tossed the basketball and James dunked the ball in the air. There was a cheer in the New Orleans arena, and Janeway was connected. This is already the Heat's iconic offense, and it appeared on the All-Star game at this moment. But then, the Western troops also strengthened their offensive, the 10-point gap froze, and the Eastern troops failed to narrow even the 1-point difference in successive waves of offensive and defensive. As a result, with 2 minutes left in the final game, the East Division began to give up the game. LeBron James also had no motivation to attack, and slowly controlled to the front court and threw the ball directly to Angzi, like a charity. Angzi didn't care, the ball was given to himself, and James didn't even want to take it back. The 10-point difference seemed to be a big gap, but Angzi didn't mean to give up at all. He dribbled 2 consecutive hips from the outside line, shook Harden away, and scored a three-pointer. With a sigh, a whistle sounded from the New Orleans arena. The point difference was reduced to 7 points. LeBron James saw the opportunity again. He began to defend the defensive end. However, this time, the West team still did not give a chance. Kevin Durant made a mid-range move. Under James' defense without any negligence, he made a crucial goal against the Sky, and the point difference became 9 points. So James wilted the president again and entered the game for love. This time, after taking control of the front court, he threw the basketball to Paul George. George was in normal form and was not prepared to come by himself. After taking the ball from the middle distance for a while, he still passed the ball to Angzi. After Angzi received the ball, a natural dislocation was formed. He faced Stephen Curry's defense, and then it was the same. Without any hesitation, Angzi made another three-pointer from the outside. Stephen Curry leaped high, trying hard to reach the basketball, and the basketball threw a perfect arc. Then, in a scream, "Get into the basket! 3 points! Go in again! There are 6 points left!" With a look of perseverance, an 11 began to retreat. It's 6 points, what choice will the Western Army make? With a 6-point difference, the West's offense, Stephen Curry broke through and reached the basket. Seeing that the layup is about to succeed, a big yellow hand was shot from the diagonal stabbing. With a snap, fan the basketball. Angzi. The big hat at the critical moment. It's beautiful. The basketball flew out of the bottom line and Angzi roared. In the All-Star game, when everyone was serious, Angzi began to lead the East troops to chase points frantically. For several consecutive rounds, Angzi proved his strength. Soon, the basketball was relaunched, but the West team ran out of time. After receiving the ball, Curry slammed a long-range two-pointer and missed it with a bang. Rebounds. Rebound and rebound. There were several rebounds scrambling on the court at the same time. Not only was the East and the West competing for the rebound, but the East was also competing for the rebound. Paul George roared, squeezed everyone away, and grabbed the rebound with a crash. Then he shouted again, "An! Catch the ball!" Anzi got the basketball, and LeBron James hurriedly ran forward with him, raising his hands for the ball. Anzi didn't have any intention to pass the ball. He ran with the ball and rushed to the front court. When the West troops had almost retreated in place, they made a three-pointer in place. The scream sounded directly, and there were only the last seconds left in the game. If this three-pointer hits, the Western Army will reduce the difference to points, a fairly subtle score. Huh! With a crisp sound and a bang, there was an exclamation in the New Orleans arena. Finished. Anzi scored the third three-pointer in a row. The only difference is the last one. Wonderful, the last one of the All-Star game is simply wonderful. At this time, on the other side of the ocean, all the websites with Barrage Live broadcasts were swiped out, and occasionally a sentence or two of too explosive also flashed past. In CCTV's live broadcast room, director Yujia and Zhang were completely crazy. Even if Anzi could not get the All-Star, the performance of the All-Star in the last few minutes was enough for them to blow the latest chapter of Taoism. After 3 consecutive three-pointers, Anzi's scoring came to the point. He has already scored more points than LeBron James. Therefore, James is also a little anxious. The offensive of the Western troops was still very fast, and they did not delay time because the score was only 3 points short. However, Blake Griffin's mid-range shot missed, Carmelo Anthony grabbed the rebound, and the point difference was still points. This gave the East a chance to equalize, and even if it scored a goal quickly, the East even had a lower opportunity for competition. James rushed to the front court, and then directly opened his hands for the ball. At the end of the game, James also wanted to play the image of a savior. Anthony quickly passed the basketball in, James cut directly with the ball, and Anzi also slanted in from the other side. To be honest, N11 didn't know why he wanted to enter the restricted area, but he just had the idea of entering the restricted area. N11 felt that at this time, he should follow James into the restricted area. Maybe there will be some unexpected gains. James lay up against Durant's defense. When he rose to the highest altitude, he threw the basketball out, then landed, and immediately began to shout and celebrate with a grim expression. But the next moment, the basketball jumped out of the frame. LeBron James layup. Didn't make it? Just when the commentator was about to announce the death penalty of the Eastern Army, N11 jumped out, leaped high, grabbed the basketball that came out of the bullet frame, and slammed it into the hoop. Beep. The referee's whistle sounded at the same time. Lauren Hotcomp? The beautiful referee on the bottom line directly whistled Griffin's defensive foul, which also wanted to pick up the rebound, plus. With a bang, the New Orleans arena broke out, and cheers exploded in the arena. Anzi. It's Anzi again. He appeared again. At the most critical moment, Anzi made a dunk and caused a foul by Blake Griffin. If a penalty is added, the score of the East and West divisions will be tied. Moreover, there are still the last seconds left in the game. In other words, in any case, the Eastern Army will have a chance to kill the Western Army. Adding a penalty, Anzi walked to the free throw line and took a deep breath. On the sidelines, New Orleans fans shouted for the face. At the last moment, Anzi's performance was indeed worthy of such shouts. It was Anzi who showed them a great All-Star game performance. An additional penalty hit, and there was another cheer from the sidelines. At 163:63, the score was officially tied. At this time, everything became critical. The head coach of the Western Army, Scott Brooks, also called a timeout, and they wanted to fight for the final victory. After the timeout, Frank Vogel also arranged defensive tactics. Now, LeBron James has no idea about the All-Stars. Even if the East team wins, Anzi has already scored more points than him, and he is still in the critical moment. With this kind of performance, as long as the Eastern Army wins, the All-Star will only belong to the Anzi magician. Therefore, James just listened to Frank Vogel's arrangement with his arms akimbo, even if Vogel said, "If you grab the rebound, immediately hand the basketball to Anzi." We try not to pause and let Anzi end the offense directly. When Frank Vogel said these words, LeBron James did not interrupt. He knew that Anzi is in better condition now and the last shot should be Anzi's. Frank Vogel's idea of not suspending is also very simple. The suspension will make the West troops organize the defense. On the contrary, if the time is not suspended, Anzi can take advantage of a random fight, and the success rate may be higher. The timeout was over quickly, and the Western Army began to attack. Stephen Curry had the ball. What would he do? Will this All-Star game become another overtime All-Star game after the All-Star game of the year? When everyone was guessing the final result of the game, Stephen Curry moved. On the last goal, Stephen Curry chose to believe in himself. He wanted to end the game by himself. After 2 consecutive dribbles from the outside, Blake Griffin pulled out. After the last time was spent, Curry moved laterally, bypassing Griffin's screen, dodged Wade's defense, and shot directly outside. 1 3 points. Stephen Curry's three-pointer. He is going to end the game directly. 3-pointers, if a goal is scored, what the East can do is to equalize the score and wait for overtime. So Stephen Curry's idea is very simple: shoot 3-pointers, and directly make the East troops desperate. And this 3-pointer, Stephen Curry is very confident, this is his best way of scoring. How could it not enter? As a result, everyone breathed quickly, waiting for the basketball to pass over the arena, the final ending. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 435. Stephen Curry's three-pointer. Is there any? In the CCTV live broadcast room, director Zhang and Yujia also stared wide-eyed and waited for the final outcome of the basketball. The basketball flew over the arena, over all the fans waiting eagerly, and then, bang! Didn't get in. Exclamations came one after another. Carmelo Anthony grabbed the rebound. Not in. It's a tie. The Eastern Army still has a chance to kill, see how they choose. Without a timeout, Carmelo Anthony passed the ball directly to Anzi. Anzi ran wildly, and with 4 seconds left, he rushed directly to the front court. There is no timeout. The East Army chose to let Anzi end the game directly. In the front court, 2 steps away from the three-point line, time was not enough. Anzi faced James Harden's defense and directly scored the last three-pointer. Anzi's 3 points. Is this a lure? With a buzzing sound, the timer had turned on the red light, and the game was over but not over. Everyone stood up and looked at the basketball flying in the air. Anzi's three-pointer is very fast, and the spinning force is also in place. It passes through the air quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it starts to fall. Then, scream. The New Orleans arena was quiet for a second, then, suddenly, it exploded. Whistles, cheers, and screams sounded one after another. Lore. The lore from the All-Star game. Anzi did it. He is amazing, Charles Barkley contributed a passionate commentary. At this moment, an 11 stood alone in the middle of the court, opened his arms, listening to all the cheers. In the last 2 minutes, 15 points in a row. This is Anzi. The Eastern Army turned defeat into victory, and director Anzi turned a big turn. The plot of this game is wonderful. There are twists and turns. 2 minutes ago, the Western Army was still 10 points ahead, and the winning ticket was in hand. 2 minutes later, Anzi scored 4 three-pointers and a 21. He stole the victory from the Western Army. Perhaps, this game can already be called it is the most exciting All-Star game in NBA history. All the commentators were admiring what happened in the last 2 minutes of the game. And 11 directed a big reversal. In the last 2 minutes, he scored 15 points in a row, and the last 4 seconds was allure. Everything was dominated by Anxi. Of Adam Silver, who was watching the game on the sidelines, bloomed. The constant cheers and screams on the sidelines heralded that the game has completely mobilized the fans on the sidelines, so the fans watching the live broadcast in front of the TV must be the same. After a wonderful All-Star game, NB can have many more fans. The same goes for Anxi. In the last 2 minutes of performance, he will also have a lot of Anxi fans, especially in the United States. Anxi will gain a lot of fans because of this game. After the game was over, Anxi slowly walked to the sidelines and began to accept interviews with reporters. The interview was scheduled before the game, so CCTV grabbed the right to interview Anxi. CCTV front reporter Duan Xian raised the microphone to Anxi and said, "Anxi, I am very happy to interview you after the All-Star game. Your performance in this game it's very good and scored 48 points. Do you think you have a chance to win the final P trophy?" And 11 nodded, "Have a chance, after all, my score is still the highest in the game." Duan Xian heard this and immediately added, "Not only was it the highest in the game, but it also broke the single game scoring record held by Wilt Chamberlain in the All-Star game." Anxi smiled. Hearing what Duan Xian said, it seemed that he was holding the All-Star P trophy. It should be a certainty. In the last 2 minutes, he hit 3 points in a row and hit a 21-point dunk. How did I think about these shots at the time, and why did I feel that I should shoot these shots? After all, a few three-pointers were shot against the defense. Of Duan Xian's question asked a lot of people want to ask, Anxi's big explosion in the last 2 minutes, every shot must be made, it looks simply too dreamy. To this question, and 11's answer is very simple, anyway, if the ball is given to me, I will shoot it. It doesn't matter if I score or not, but in the end it all scored. Duan Xian gave Anxi a thumbs up, and then secretly said, "Domineering." Then, he continued to ask, "Last question, if you win the All-Star P trophy, how would you celebrate?" "Go to your own Chinese restaurant for a meal," Anxi said jokingly. My own Chinese restaurant, Anxi opened a Chinese restaurant in Philadelphia. He didn't know about it in China. Duan Xian heard about it for the first time, and regardless of the last question he just said, he asked again. Anxi did not refuse to answer and smiled and nodded, "Yes, I opened a Chinese restaurant in Philadelphia called Angia Courtyard." The camera was turned off, and 11 stood on the sidelines, chatted with Duan Xian for a while, then waved his hand and temporarily left the arena. After resting in the locker room for a while, putting on a clean jersey, the star players from the East and West Division returned to the court. Next, it was time to announce the All-Star P. Adam Silver stood on the sidelines in person, and the host of Turner Sports held his microphone beside him. After all the players stood in the center of the field, the bald host with eyes announced, "Who are the players in the Star Match P?" The host also sold it, but Paul George is already pushing Anxi. The player who won the P in the 2014 All-Star Game is Anxi. Anxi walked out of the many star players and waved. Anxi won the P in this All-Star Game. Let us congratulate him. Anxi, at this moment, he has become the star of the stars. The major commentators also began to announce that Anxi had won the P trophy for the All-Star Game. While on the field, Anxi had come to the forefront, shook hands with the award-presenting Adam Xiaohua, and then took the trophy. Hold it high. The New Orleans arena burst into cheers. P was taken by Anxi, well deserved, this is everyone's thoughts, and Charles Barkley told him. 2 minutes and 15 minutes, this is the greatest performance in the All-Star Game. Later, Charles Barkley gave his argument. Indeed, if there were number 2 minutes and 15 points from Angzi, this game would be an ordinary all-star game, no different from previous years. Every star will show up. Minutes, then the score ended flatly. However, Angzi's possession of the ball in the last 2 minutes made the game different. The East and West All-Stars played a game with real swords and guns. Especially in the last 2 minutes, Angzi guarded the three-pointers and supplementary deductions, which made the game full of magic. Angzi won the All-Star P trophy, and the All-Star weekend is over. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 436. After the All-Star game, Angzi is ready to return to Philadelphia. But before returning to Philadelphia, the system was upgraded again. Angzi scored 48 points in the All-Star game, and Angzi broke Wilt Chamberlain and maintained a single-game scoring record in the All-Star game. This is what Duan Xian reminded him. Angzi also took it in his heart and began to consider upgrade options early. Angzi's existing attribute bonuses, 3-point attribute bonus 90, CIC attribute bonus 85, single defense attribute bonus 99, steal attribute bonus 95, off-ball attribute bonus 70, back attribute bonus 80, ball control attribute bonus 83, emergency stop jumper attribute bonus 70, breakthrough attribute bonus 96, backward jumper attribute bonus 99, low post attribute bonus 70, pass attribute bonus 81. From the point of view of bonus attributes, Angzi's offense is already very good, with three-pointers with mid-range shots. Low backs are considered to be the league's top active players, with the full value attributes of up and back jumpers, and a 96-point breakthrough, even an emergency stop with 70 jumpers. Angzi can evolve a variety of offensive methods from the middle distance or even beyond the three-point line. For example, the backward jumper after holding the ball or the backward jumper after the breakthrough is the simplest kind of evolution. In addition, the emergency stop jumper after the breakthrough is another simple evolution. To be more complicated, the breakthrough after holding the ball away from the opponent, and then receiving the emergency stop jumper or directly hitting the basket without receiving the emergency stop jumper, or the breakthrough jumper after holding the ball behind the back. These are more offensive methods. Through these changes in offensive methods, Angzi can play and defend his players again and again. However, relatively speaking, Angzi's offensive methods at the basket are still somewhat lacking. With the improvement of other offensive attributes, the off-ball attributes are also somewhat low. However, considering that no ball can be directly added by Jeff Hornacek, breaking Ray Allen's record can be upgraded, Angzi will not consider this attribute. Therefore, in terms of offense, what Angzi needs is some upgrades in the inside or offensive methods at the basket. As for defense, Angzi's single defense is very strong, the league's top level, combined with the league's top steals. One-on-one defense, Angzi is not afraid of anyone, even LeBron James. Co-defense is not good. Angzi's co-defense has only one basic data. In terms of remedial defense, he has always relied on his physical fitness and single defense ability to do it. His performance can only be considered average, and the 76 ERS defense is not good. So, after thinking about it for a long time, Angzi's first upgrade option is to assist defense, followed by some internal offensive methods, such as layups, hook shots, close shots, and so on. However, considering that the number of full upgrades is very precious, if it is used to upgrade a certain internal offensive method, it would be too wasteful. Therefore, in the hotel in New Orleans, after the human creation movement ended, Abby fell asleep. Angzi looked at the upgraded system excitedly, and began to choose the upgraded attributes. The choice is very simple: help defend the attribute. A white light flashed, and the upgrade was successful. The defense attribute is upgraded to the full value of 99. After this attribute is upgraded, Angzi has only 2 attributes related to defense, including blocks and defensive rebounds. However, Angzi does not have a high demand for these 2 attributes, so it won't be upgraded for now. With the promotion of assisted defense attributes, coupled with the arrival and integration of Pau Gasol, Angzi can look forward to more games after the All-Star game. After returning to Philadelphia, the 76ers entered a short vacation time. During the holidays, Angzi's All-Star MVP was also fermented in North America. North American Radical fans have besieged Angzi for a month and a half, and scored 66 points from Angzi, reducing some of the Radical fans. Then Angzi defeated LeBron James head-on to prove himself and reduce the siege of some Radical fans. In the end, this All-Star after the game, there were few Radical fans who were still questioning Angzi. On the contrary, there are a lot of Angzi fans in North America, and many of them are Angzi fans. The content on Twitter can be compared with the domestic post. For example, a fan named Billy Lynn tweeted, compared with McGrady's 35.13 seconds and Angzi's 2 minutes and 15 minutes, who is better? Then, a heated discussion arose. The opinion of most fans is that Angzi is far inferior to Tracy McGrady. A small number of fans viewed Angzi's 2 minutes and 15 minutes rationally. They believed that, anyway, Angzi's 2 minutes and 15 minutes was a great performance. Compared with McGrady's 35 seconds and 13 minutes, it was shocking. It's a bit worse, but the gold content is not bad at all. Angzi scored 2 minutes and 15 points in the All-Star game, especially when everyone got serious. Moreover, Angzi's 2 minutes and 15 minutes can already be regarded as the most shocking performance on the All-Star game. It is said that the All-Star game is an exhibition game, but it has never appeared in history to be able to perform a game like Angzi. It can be said that Angzi created the history of the NBA. He made an All-Star game turn into twists and turns. The instigator of the All-Star Vote King event, William Hunter, posted a tweet that looked sour. It's just an explosion of an exhibition game. Then, he attracted a crowd of supporters to help him repost Twitter. For this kind of beam-jumping clown, Angzi still can't pay much attention to it. After returning to Philadelphia, Angzi's personal trainer was also settled. Mark Eaton still failed to negotiate. He chose to become an assistant coach. Therefore, it was Cannon Baker who eventually became Angzi's new personal trainer. However, Cannon Baker only signed a 3-month short contract, that is to say. After the season, Angzi must find a new personal trainer, but for Cannon Baker, Angzi still believes in it. After all, Cannon Baker's resume is there, the strongest in the United States. Personal trainer, many big names invite him to help him adjust his status, but the price is not low. The fee is $1.8 million for 3 months, an average of $600,000 per month. However, considering that Cannon Baker will bring a team, the price is barely can bear it. The arrival of Cannon Baker allowed an 11 to reopen the training of the inside offensive technique. Under the advice of Cannon Baker, an 11 began to continuously improve the technique of hook shot. Cannon Baker believes that if Angzi develops a hook shot, whether it is a big hook or a small hook on the inside, or a forehand, back hook, or a half hook full hook, as long as it is developed, it will be matched with Shang Angzi's back shot. Can become Angzi's new personal stunt, just like the current backup jumper after holding the ball, it will become one of Angzi's most confident offensive skills. Cannon Baker's theory is very acceptable to Angzi. In the final analysis, Angzi's offensive methods inside and under the basket are still lacking. Although he can break into the inside line or dunk with his physical fitness, once he encounters a tough defense, his hit rate is still insufficient. And if the hook is developed, at least Angzi can really be regarded as a kaleidoscope of offense from the inside out. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 437. On the third day after the end of the All-Star game, the 76ers resumed training. Anzi drove to the underground garage of the training hall, greeted Jack Lauder, who had also just arrived, and walked into the locker room. The locker room was very deserted. There were not many people. Anzi was surprised and didn't care. He sat in front of his cabinet and silently changed into training clothes. After a while, the teammates arrived. However, Anzi frowned. Training time was approaching, but the team was missing a few people. At this time, he thought that today is also the trade deadline, and all trades must be completed before today. Samsinki unexpectedly appeared in the locker room and called Anzi. Anzi followed Samsinki out of the locker room, and the intelligent Anzi already understood something. As he walked, he said, "And, tomorrow is the trade deadline. I made 2 more trades. Let me tell you." And 11 nodded. A deal is Evan Turner's deal. Turner was traded, Anzi had guessed it, because he didn't see Turner in the locker room. Anzi sighed, but after thinking about it, maybe being traded is a good thing for Evan Turner. Turner is in good shape this season, but because of the existence of Anzi N'Gawe, Turner had to go. After being off the bench, playing time has declined to a certain extent. This time he was traded, and Evan Turner may be able to get a chance to show himself. Samsinki continued, "Evan was sent to the Rockets, and we also got Elliot Williams from the Rockets. We got Omer Asik and Troy Daniels, and there is also a first for next year. Round of picks?" Anzi nodded and said that he understood that Turner was sent to the Rockets, and the subject of this transaction was basically Evan Turner's exchange for Omer Asik and a first-round pick for next year, but based on the Rockets' current record, this first-round draft pick should be a draft pick at the end of the first round. Overall, the 76ers got Asik, an above-standard starting center, and the trade is not a loss. The two walked outside of Samsinki's office, and then they talked about another transaction. What about another transaction? Tony Rutan, he was sent away. Tony? Didn't he play well? Anzi was still a little puzzled when Tony Rutan was sent away. Except for his unqualified defensive performance, Tony Rutan's offensive performance was still very good and he was able to make a sudden shot. Very suitable to partner with Anzi. This deal was requested by Brett. Tony Rutan's defense was too poor. Brett asked to send him away and build a better point guard rotation. Who did it get? No one exchanged it, only got a first-round pick for next year. Next year's first-round pick. Anzi frowned, but then he thought about the Knicks' current record outside the Eastern Conference playoffs. Tony Rutan was traded to make up for the vacancy of the point guard position. This season, the Knicks have played poorly in controlling Raymond Felton, and Mike Woodson believes that the vacancy in master control is the main reason for the team's poor performance. As a result, in the 76ers as a substitute, Tony Rutan, who has repeatedly performed well, became the Knicks' signing target. But Samsinki's idea is very simple. Although the Knicks' goal is still the playoffs, judging from the Knicks' current rankings, the probability of not making the playoffs in the end is also very high. Therefore, the 76ers get that draft pick is either a draft pick in the middle of the first round or a draft pick in the lottery area. In any case, the deal is not a loss. If it becomes a draft pick in the lottery, it will still be profitable. Anzi probably understands the two trades. They are both non-profit and no-loss trades. Only 2 players were obtained. The arrival of Omer Asik further strengthened the team's inside line. Cole Aldridge can return to the bench. Once seated, Asik will be a better starting center. As for Troy Daniels, Anzi doesn't know much about it, but according to Samsinki, Troy Daniels is a good outside three-point shooter, and he has completed the task that Anzi gave Zinke. An inside gate, and an outside three-point shooter. After not 2 trades, the 76ers have only 13 players left on the roster. Obviously, they still have to sign in the future, either with a draft pick or signing a free agent from the free market. We chatted in the office for a while, and the team's training began. When the teammates were still wondering why 3 players were suddenly missing, Brett Brown came out and clapped his hands. "Well, don't look around. Evan, Elliott, and Tony have all been traded. They have already rushed to their new team. Our training today is very simple. We will play against each other in groups." The arena was quiet for a while, and several players showed a look of surprise. After a while, Brett Brown began to arrange the groups for the match. "Michael, your injury is still not healed. Go to the other side to train yourself." Brett Brown drove away the injured Nkaway. The remaining players were exactly 10 people, 5v5 formed. The main team: Angzi guest point guard, Jack Lauder starting shooting guard, small forward Francisco Garcia, power forward Pau Gasol and center Cole Aldridge. On the bench, Sean Livingston point guard, shooting guard James Anderson, small forward Hollis Thompson, power forward Byron Mullins, center Henry Sims. The match will officially begin. The purpose of the confrontation is very simple: one is to maintain the state, and the other is to practice tactics. With the arrival of Pau Gasol, the 76ers' tactics have also changed. Brett Brown has increased the number of times Gasol takes the ball in the middle distance. With the help of Pau Gasol's mid-range threat, he can attack or hold the ball himself. Attack. Angzi also needs to integrate into this new system. Therefore, although the opponents in the confrontation are weak and not a great opponent, the main team is still playing very hard because they need more running in. Waiting for Omer Asik to join in a few days, the team's defensive system also needs a new round of running in. On the trading deadline, the 76ers were conducting their training games, and relevant NBA practitioners were busy, especially the media reporters. The 76ers first officially announced 2 deals, and after acquiring Pau Gasol, they announced that they would send away Evan Turner and Elliott Williams, and get Omi from the Rockets, who had no playing time because of the arrival of Dwight Howard. Al-Asik and Troy Daniels, who has no record so far, plus a first-round pick for next year. Evan Turner was traded, and the relevant reporters began to analyze the deal. In their opinion, the 76ers made a profit. Because of Angzi, Evan Turner has been reduced to the 6th man. Although he performed well, he was only a substitute and had little impact on the 76ers. The exchange of Asik can fill the vacancy of the 76ers, and Paul Gasol forms the European Twin Towers. The 76ers' current starting center, Cole Aldridge, played only mediocre, with good rebounds, but the 76ers needed the most protection for the frame. The newcomer Asik is a good center forward, and the offensive outside screen is also a certain threat. Reporters generally spoke highly of this deal. For example, ESPN's Mark Stern believes that after this deal, the 76ers will jump directly to the top team in the East, on the same level as the Pacers and the Heat. How far you go depends on Angzi's personal performance. As for the second transaction, sending Tony Roten away to get a future first-round pick, North American reporters are clearly divided into 2 factions. One group believes that the 76ers have made money from this trade, and it is still Mark Stein. He believes that Tony Roten is a poorly defensive combo guard with little training value, especially when the 76ers have Micah. In the case of Granville, a deal to send Tony Roten and get a draft pick at least in the middle of the first round of next year, this deal is definitely a profit. And William Hunter, a new columnist for Sports Illustrated with different opinions, believes that Tony Roten is a very good attacker. If Tony Roten is sent away, the 76ers will regret it one day. The opinions of the 2 factions are completely different, mainly because Tony Roten is relatively young. There is still a lot of room for development in the future, and everything is possible. In addition to the 2 deals for the 76ers, other teams have also completed several deals and reinforcements. The Wizards officially announced that the team has acquired old point guard Andre Miller and sent Vesely to the Nuggets. The Heat announced that with Luke Richard Barmott and Roger Mason and a future second-round pick to acquire Courtney Lee from the Celtics, the goal is obvious in exchange for a new capable 3D player aimed at Anzi and Paul George. In addition, according to the Rockets' official website, the Rockets have reached a deal with the Nuggets, and Aaron Brooks and Jordan Hamilton have swapped owners. For this deal, Yahoo Woshan said that the Rockets got the athletic wing players they always wanted, and the Nuggets got a strong backup point guard. As for the Nuggets, if Ty Lawson can't play due to injury, coupled with Nate Robinson's season reimbursement and Andre Miller's trade, Brooks will most likely be the Nuggets' starting point guard. The Charlotte Bobcats officially announced that the team has acquired guards Gary Neal and Luke Ridnour through trades, and their chips are Ramon Sessions and Jeff Adrian. The Spurs official website announced that the team has reached a deal with the Raptors and traded Nando De Colo for the Raptors forward Austin Daye. At the time when the entire NBA was full of hustle and bustle, Sam Hinkie was still making his final efforts. There were only 13 people left on the roster. It is a must to recruit new players. Therefore, Sam Hinkie contacted continuously. The general managers of several teams hope to exchange their second-round picks for some good players. In addition, Sam Hinkie will also look overseas, hoping to get some good free agents through signing. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 438. At the last moment of the trade deadline, Sam Hinkie completed a buzzer deal. He used a 2014 second-round pick to trade for Antoine Jamison from the Clippers, as well as a 2014 second-round pick. From the perspective of this transaction, it is basically equivalent to the 76ers using their own salary space, empty gloves, and white wolf, and set up Antoine Jamison, raising the number of people on the big list to 14, and there is still a vacancy. Makeup. Antoine Jamison is not a strong new addition, he can only make up for the team's vacancy. Whether Jamison can win playing time in the 76ers is still unknown. After the trade deadline, the 76ers resumed their regular season journey. On February 18, 2014, the 76ers ushered in a home challenge from the Cleveland Cavaliers. On the trading deadline, the 76ers completed 3 transactions and welcomed 3 new aides. However, in this game against the Cavaliers, the 3 new aides have not yet arrived, so the 76ers can only put up a disabled formation in this game. Face the night. The Cavaliers' reinforcement deals were completed early this season. They acquired Lou Deng and 76ers veteran Spencer Hawes through the trade. In this game, the Cavaliers are all the main players in the playoffs. They are aiming for the playoffs. I hope to win the game at the 76ers home court. In the morning, the 76ers gathered in the training hall. Nkaway will still not play. He will continue to take a rest to recover from his injuries, so there are only 10 players left for the 76ers to play in this game. The new teammates have not arrived in Philadelphia. They will come to the team to report tomorrow. We have only 10 people available to play tonight's game, so you all have the opportunity to play. After the arrival of the new aide, the rotation order will also be disrupted. Individuals have the opportunity to win their own playing time in the new team, everything depends on your performance. Brett Brown talked about the afternoon game. Our opponent in the evening is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team on the edge of the Eastern Conference playoffs. The strength is average, but I hope you don't underestimate the enemy, take your best form and defeat them in the opening game. Well, our morning training schedule is very simple, let's do some basic training separately. Brett Brown clapped his hands, and then the players dispersed. After the All-Stars, the 76ers have a record of 34 wins and 20 losses, ranking 3rd in the Eastern Conference. The Cavaliers' record is exactly the opposite of the 76ers' record, 20 wins and 34 losses, currently ranked 10th in the Eastern Conference, and still retains the hope of breaking into the playoffs. In the afternoon, with half an hour left before the start of the game, in the dressing room, Brett Brown announced the starting lineup for the game. Because of Mkhitaryan's injury and the transfer of Tony Rutten, the starting lineup of this game will definitely change. Many people are speculating about how Brett Brown will choose to let Anzi guest point guard and shooting guard James Anderson or Francis Kogarcia started, or directly let Sean Livingston serve as the starter. In the end, Brett Brown chose the former. In this game, our starting lineup is point guard Anzi, shooting guard James Anderson, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Paul Gasol and center Cole Aldridge, and, you are the master, pay attention to control rhythm, besides, prevent that Kelly Owen. Brett Brown then looked at Anzi, and Anzi nodded. Perhaps Brett Brown asked him to act as a point guard, and he also had a bit of meaning for Anzi to directly confront Owen and prevent Owen from death. Anzi is in charge, but Brett Brown still wants to emphasize the tactics. Paul, you take the ball more in the middle distance and pay more attention to the screen. Pau Gasol also nodded, covering the middle distance. He is very good at this and it is not difficult to do it. Others move more, open up space, and create space for the shooter. Abby bought a set of tickets for the 76ers at home, which is located just behind the home team bench. After Anzi and the others warmed up, they sat on the bench, and Abby was sitting just behind Anzi. But the two didn't communicate much. They turned their heads to look at each other and smiled, and then the lights of Wachovia Arena dimmed. The appearance ceremony began, the substitute players stood up one after another, and the 5 starters sat on the bench. The DJ on the scene began to shout, first of all, let's welcome the 7'1" super center, Cole Aldridge. Cole Aldridge bounced around, rushed out of the bench, slapped the bench players, and stood in the middle of the court. Next, it was James Anderson. Next, we are our super 3-point shooter, James Anderson. James Anderson also rushed out. Then Jack Lauder rushed out amidst the shouts of the DJ on the scene. The 4th player to play is Pau Gasol. As the team's new aide, although Pau Gasol hasn't played much yet, he has won the love of many Philadelphia fans. When Gasol waved out, the Wachovia Arena burst into cheers. Finally, Anzi is about to play. Finally. Let us use the warmest applause and cheers, as well as your screams, to welcome the current king of Philadelphia, the super guard swingman, Anzi from China. With a bang, Wachovia Arena burst into unstoppable applause, cheers and screams. Abby also waved excitedly on the sidelines. Anzi waved to both sides of the arena, and then hugged his teammates. After the appearance ceremony, the two teams stood in the center of the court. The referee of this game was Bennett Salvatore. He blew his whistle and threw the basketball directly into the sky. Cheers from the sidelines sounded and the game officially began. Omer Asik is coming, and Cole Aldridge felt the pressure. When he jumped the ball, he tried his best to defeat Andre Varejao and grab the ball. The 76ers got the ball for the first offense. Anzi caught the ball outside the 3-point line. In this game, he was a head taller than Owen as a guest point guard. Therefore, the Cavaliers also adjusted their defensive position. Luerden moved in front of Anzi to defend Anzi. The Cavaliers' starting lineup has also made some changes. Point guard Kelly Irving, shooting guard C.J. Miles, small forward Ruel Deng, power forward Tristan Thompson and center Andre Varejao, while the 76ers will be in the Cavaliers. Still can only play as a substitute. Facing Ruel Deng's defense, Anzi felt very relaxed. Ruel Deng is also considered an old acquaintance of Anzi. He played against him in the Olympics, and also against the Bulls before. Every time Anzi ran away, ignoring Ruel Deng's defense or defending against Ruel Deng's death on the defensive end, let Ruel Deng play against him. Suffering beyond words. Therefore, facing Luerden, Angzi still has a little psychological advantage. However, on the first goal of the opening, an 11 did not choose to go it alone. He squeezed the ball in, and then directly dropped the ball to Pau Gasol, who was in the high position. Then he ran back and ran to the bottom corner, and directly crossed the screen with James Anderson. An 11 continued to slip the bottom line. James Anderson ran to the sideline beyond the three-point line, and then directly attracted the defense and opened up space for an 11. Pau Gasol immediately scored the ball and Angzi reached the basket with the ball. Tristan Thompson hurriedly made up his defense and rushed over with his long arms. However, Angzi quickly hit the ground and passed the ball. Jack Lauder, who had formed an open space on the other side, received the ball, adjusted it directly from the outside and took a three-pointer. Swish, a three-pointer hit. The 76ers offense was completed in the opening game, and a series of beautiful cooperation attracted a burst of cheers from the fans on the sidelines. With the Cavaliers' offense, Irving advanced to the front court with the ball. This season, the Cavaliers' record is mediocre. Although the team owner has asked for the playoffs this season, Kelly Irving led the team alone and the effect was not good. In January, he was traded for Lou Deng and found the first place. After being a helper, the Cavaliers' record still shows no signs of recovery. However, Irving's personal performance is still very qualified. So far this season, he has averaged 20.8 points, 3.6 rebounds, 6.1 assists and 1.5 steals per game. His personal performance is at least ranked in the top 10 among point guards this season. But in this game, Irving's pressure is still quite large. He needs to face Angzi's defense. After the continuous fake moves on the outside line, Angzi gave in. Irving directly started to rush into the inside, and then faced Angzi's defense, directly hitting a mid-range shot. With a bang, the basketball hits the iron, not in. Cole Aldridge took off the rebound and then passed the ball directly to Angzi. Angzi quickly advanced with the ball, played a wave of fast breaks, and made a direct layup in the front court. The whole process took less than 5 seconds. The 76ers played a wave of fast breaks to counter-attack, leading the Cavaliers 4-0 in the opening game. Tencent Sports broadcasted the game, explaining that Yang Huahua started shaking her head when she saw Owen single play Angzi. Later, when he failed to make a CIC, he even directly said, "There is a reason for the Cavaliers' poor record. Look at their opening ball. There is no tactical cooperation." Brown failed to train the Cavaliers, and it really disappeared. Jean Huang, Brown is a head coach who is useless. On the field, the 76ers, who were on the fast break, continued to put pressure on the Cavaliers on the defensive end. Irving tried to beat Angzi again. This time, Angzi was even more polite, pestering Irving, and directly intercepted the ball. After he slammed the ball successfully, it was another wave of fast break. Before the Cavaliers could react, an 11 rushed to the front court and completed the layup. At 6-0, the Cavaliers were beaten up in the opening game. Brown shouted anxiously from the sidelines and waved his hands constantly to let the inside players go out for pick-and-roll screens. This time, the Cavaliers' offense was a little better. Irving took control of the ball from the outside line for a while, waited for Tristan Thompson's screen, and rushed into the inside line with the help of the screen. After throwing away Angzi, he shot an arrow on horseback and the basketball through a high. The arc, falling into the basket. The Cavaliers finally scored. The 76ers served in the backcourt. This time it was impossible to make a fast break, so the ball was handed over to an 11. An 11 made an accelerated breakthrough, rushed to the mid-range to face Lou Deng's defense and came up with a sudden stop jumper, with a bang, no in. There was a sigh from the sidelines. An 11 didn't care, his hands were still a bit cold, and he still needed to find the feel. Next, the Cavaliers attacked and they continued to screen and cooperate from the outside. Owen quickly dribbled the ball short, leaning across Thompson's screen, like throwing off Anzi. At this time, Anzi suddenly started to fish. With a snap, I caught the basketball again. Steal. Anzi, who caught the basketball, started directly and launched a fast break again. There was no one in the front court. Anzi rushed to the front court as quickly as possible, and then leaped one step by rubbing the free throw line, raising his arm directly into a big windmill, and dunking the basketball into the hoop with a bang. With a bang, Wachovia Arena is crazy Anzi. I love you. There were even female fans on the sidelines showing love to Anzi, so Abby, who was also watching the game from the sidelines, looked for the source of the sound with a murderous look. On the court, Anzi shook his arm for dunking and looked very excited. After Anzi dunked, the score became 8-2. The 76ers played very strongly in the opening game. In contrast, the Cavaliers' offense and defense were messy, and Brown kept wiping sweat from the sidelines, but to no avail. Vareo ran to the backcourt to prepare to serve, but Brown immediately gestured and called a timeout. At this time, within 2 minutes of the start of the game, Brown called the first timeout of the game. However, considering the Sixers' momentum, this timeout is still necessary. After the timeout, Brown immediately emphasized the team's offense, especially that Irving could not do it alone as soon as he got the ball, but had to pass more. However, Irving disagrees with the multiple passes that Brown emphasized. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 440. After the timeout, Kelly Irving didn't listen to Mike Brown's arrangement at all, and went on to get the ball and continue to work alone. But this time, after Owen broke through Anzi's defense, he finally chose to pass the ball. The ball went to the outside line, Luerdeng received the basketball, continued to break, and then made a distant throw. The ball was scored, and scored 2 points. The Cavaliers temporarily solved the offensive problem, but defensively, they still had nothing to do with the 76ers. In the next round, Anzi directly turned on the backup singles mode, leaning on Luerdeng, turned around and faced the basket with his back. After hitting twice, he suddenly turned around, squeezed Luerdeng directly, and rushed 2 steps toward the inside. Tristan Thompson hurriedly dropped Pau Gasol and rushed to defend again. Gasol retreated to the mid-range position, Anzi made a return pass, Gasol made a light jump in the mid-range, and made a mid-range shot. The basketball got into the rim obediently and turned over the net for a while. The 76ers scored again, and Anzi still didn't score. He chose team offense in his personal offense and team offense. In fact, this is also because he played as a point guard today. If it is a shooting guard, Anzi might choose to come by himself. After all, in the face of Tristan Thompson's replenishment, Anzi's own scoring is also very certain, even to a certain extent than passing to Paul Gasol. Pau Gasol scored, and Anzi has already relied on the previous continuous fast break to get 6 points. Then, the Cavaliers also scored. Irving got an open with the help of the pick and roll, and scored 2 points on a mid-range jumper. At 11-6, the 76ers continued to maintain a 5-point lead. Next, the offense of the two teams gradually got on the right track, but overall the 76ers took the initiative to occupy the field. Through the continuous and slightly unfamiliar cooperation between Anzi and Pau Gasol, the offensive end broke the Cavaliers. After the first quarter, the 76ers led the Cavaliers 37-25. The 12-point lead undoubtedly gave the 76ers more capital. From the second quarter, Brett Brown began to fulfill his pre-game promises, constantly replacing players who could not play on the bench before. The lineup in the second quarter included point guard Sean Livingston and shooting guard Francis Kogersha, small forward Hollis Thompson, power forward Byron Mullins, and center Henry Sims are just another lineup. But soon, Brett Brown discovered that this lineup was completely blown by the Cavaliers' second team. The Cavaliers' second team is not weak. Point guard Jarrett Jack has always been a well-known backup point guard in the league. He is known as the main killer. It is said that if he is the backup point guard of a team, then this team's main point guard will soon have various injuries and problems, which are fulfilled in the Hornets and in the Warriors, but fortunately, the Cavaliers have not yet fulfilled them. In addition, the shooting guard is Dion Waiters, who is in conflict with Owen, and the small forward is the team's previous starter Alanzoki. It was only after Ruel Deng arrived that he gave up his starting throne. Pensyhas and Taylor Zeller, this lineup is placed on other teams, except for one star, the other can be regarded as a starting level lineup, which is also above the level in the NBA. The Cavaliers' bench lineup was very simple and efficient. Jarrett Jack and Dion Waiters broke through to attract the defense, allowing Alan Zaki and Spencer Huss to get open jump shots. In a few minutes, the score was chased by 7. It's all gone. Brett Brown's action was fairly quick and he called 2 consecutive timeouts, but the effect was not obvious. After careful consideration, Brett Brown found that this second team lacked a backbone. Originally, when Evan Turner was in the second team, Evan Turner was in the second team, which is considered to be a backbone. Now Evan Turner has moved, Sean Livingston is the most stable player on the bench, but Sean Livingston can only control the rhythm at most, and make one shot in the back. He can't do it anymore. So, after thinking about it, Brett Brown called a timeout when there were 2 points left, replaced Angzi, and replaced the underperforming Hollis Thompson. After Angzi played the first goal, the 76ers offense immediately returned to normal. Angzi singles Alanzoki in the front court, which was a rather unbalanced matchup, so the Cavaliers chose to double team, and Dion Waiters wrapped up. Upon seeing this, Angzi still pushed backwards, as if he didn't mean to pass the ball. Dion Waiters resolutely wrapped up. Then an 11 passed the ball. With an unexpected pass, an 11 suddenly thrust the basketball behind him, and then clashed behind him. Henry Sims, who received the ball, had already completed a dunk. Then, on the defensive end, Angzi began to organize the team's defense again. Henry Sims sits in the middle of the road, and Angzi is also eyeing near the middle distance. The Cavaliers' second team is still the old one. After Jarrett Jack and Dion Waiters cooperated outside, Dion Waiters broke through with the ball and Henry Sims made up for it. Then Waiters scored the ball directly to Taylor Zeller, who received the ball and wanted to buckle. At this time, Angzi appeared. Timely patching up the pass, a big frontal hat. With a snap, Zeller was flipped directly to the ground. The basketball flew out, and there was cheers from the side of the court. An 11 did not celebrate the shot, but reached out to raise Taylor Zeller, but this shot made an 11 feel very good, because he felt his progress on the defensive end after the upgrade of the defense. This ball is a very typical defense. Dion Waiters attracted the defense and scored the ball, and Taylor Zeller missed it. Originally, this wave of Cavaliers offense was inevitable to score goals, but Angzi killed them with a frontal big hat, which made Taylor Zeller deflated. The Cavaliers served from the sideline, but before that, Brown made a substitution. Kelly Irving played and replaced Dion Waiters. The lineup on the court became a double point guard lineup. In fact, Brown was also very helpless. Owen had a conflict with Waiters, and they would definitely not be able to play together, so he could only replace Waiters to stagger the playing time of the two. As a result, Waiters was dissatisfied again and shook his hand when he left the field. However, after Owen came out, he immediately made a contribution. With 6 seconds left in the offensive time, Owen received the ball and shook Sean Livingston directly, and then scored a mid-range shot. Stopped the 76ers from opening the points difference. But soon, With the 76ers offense, Anzi outside and Byron Mullins came to a pick-and-roll cooperation, and then directly received the ball and made a three-pointer. Swish, a three-pointer hit. Anzi's personal score came to 14 points. Then, back to the defensive end, Anzi made another double defensive double team, and the steal succeeded. After launching a fast break, he scored 2 points again. So, soon, the points difference opened again. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 441. In the second quarter, after Anzi played, the situation stabilized. The 76ers seized the opportunity to expand the score, leading the Cavaliers by 13 points at halftime. Then, in the third quarter, Pau Gasol was replaced again, and Gasol played for a while with a substitute. Then the points difference was gradually expanded to 20 points. At the end of the third quarter, Anzi played, the two stars combined, and the first half of the fourth quarter directly expanded the points difference to 25 points. As a result, this game eventually evolved into a game without suspense. After the game, the 76ers won the Cavaliers by 22 points. Anzi scored 27 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. Pau Gasol also scored 22 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks. The double star scored 49 points, 13 rebounds, and 15 assists. With 5 steals and 4 blocks, the 76ers gradually showed their strength after Pau Gasol joined. Anzi didn't spend too much energy in winning this game, and he didn't even break through the game a few times. It's still the old style of play, holding the ball behind his back, and then making a threat. Even so, the Cavaliers were unable to cope with the threats Anzi posed on the offensive end. After playing this game, Brett Brown began to consider how the team's rotation should be formulated. This game of playing the Cavaliers still exposed many problems of the team. Sending away Evan Turner and Thaddeus Young did improve the team's strength to a certain extent, but correspondingly, the team also lost the second team's possession point. The newly joined Troy Daniels must be the last one. A substitute, Asik may be the starter, and he squeezed out Cole Aldridge. Cole Aldridge will at best strengthen the defense of the bench lineup, and the offensive benefit is too small. In addition to joining the veteran Antoine Jamison, the resume is very brilliant, but after experiencing the Clippers leg hug trip, Jamison has long lost his courage. So, Brett Brown considered letting Kawhi go on the bench, and then rejected the idea. Michael can't be on the bench. Without Anzi, Michael wouldn't be able to play very well, so, it can only be this way. Brett Brown circled the big roster and finally decided to let the main team rotate and play with a substitute. However, in order to fulfill the promise that everyone will have the opportunity to squeeze into the rotation lineup, on February 21st, the home game against the Mavericks, 3 new aides arrived. Brett Brown repeated what he said before, and then in the game, once again a substantial rotation was carried out, except for Hollis Thompson and Henry Sims who did not play well in the previous game. All other players got playing time. But soon, the 76ers had the consequences. The Mavericks are not a bad team. Dirk Nowitzki and Monta Ellis lead the team. The record is not bad. The record of 32 wins and 23 losses in the West can only be ranked at the end of the playoffs, but in the East, this record is only a little worse than the 76ers. As a result, after replacing the full bench in the second quarter, even if Anzi and Pau Gasol took turns to lead the team was still defeated by the Mavericks' sharp outside fast-shooting tactics. After 3 quarters, the 76ers are 19 points behind. No matter how Brett Brown adjusts, even if it is directly replaced by the main force at halftime, it will be difficult to narrow the point difference. However, the 76ers still did not give up the game. In the fourth quarter, Brett Brown gathered all the starting points, well, We are now 19 points behind, and this point difference can still be chased, so in the fourth quarter, we continue to start. And, Paul, it's up to you in the fourth quarter. Use your talents to tie the score. In addition, James, Jay, and Omer will defend well. In addition, if the ball is passed to you, there will be an open space. If you do, then decisively score. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, Angzi continued to play. The state of Angzi in this game was also average. Rick Carlisle was a scheming coach. He started double-teaming against Angzi in the first quarter. Then Angzi added a breakthrough in the second quarter. Rick Carlisle expanded his defense and passed. The double-teaming of the outside line directly locked Angzi. Then, at the end of the halftime, the 76ers fell behind by a large margin, 26 points behind at halftime. In the third quarter, Angzi tried his best to chase points, chasing 7 points in a single quarter, which was a bit inefficient. So in the fourth quarter, although Angzi still had fighting spirit, he had no hope of victory in this game. The 76ers serve in the backcourt, and the Mavericks have already landed at halftime. Still the old defensive expansion, Sean Marion cooperated with Monta Ellis to block Angzi, and Angzi's dribble was a little difficult. As a result, Angzi can only choose to pass. This is also the purpose of the Mavericks. An 11 passes the ball without the ball in his hands, and the threat is much smaller. However, in the fourth quarter, under Brett Brown's arrangement, the 76ers offense has also changed a lot. After Angzi passed the ball, James Anderson, who received the ball, scored the ball again. Pau Gasol mentioned that the ball was received in the high position. The Mavericks continued their oppressive defense. They began to accumulate strong sides, making it difficult for Gasol to get the ball up. In the fourth quarter, the most significant change for the 76ers is that Angzi needs to play more off the ball. Pau Gasol held the ball in the high position, Angzi ran back to throw off the double-team defense, and then came to a cross screen with Jack Lauder, after breaking through the screen, rushed to the other side of the middle distance, and then received the basketball. Angzi received the basketball, and the Mavericks were about to double-team again. Angzi naturally wouldn't let it go, so he broke through directly with the ball. The 90SIXS breakthrough is still very sharp, but it also has to be misfired when encountering double teams. Sean Marion made it up, and Dale Import, who was inside, also came in. At this time, Angzi had a variety of options, and what the Mavericks wanted to see was Angzi chose to pass the ball because they had already blocked by running. The passing route near Angzi is dead. Even if it is a pass, it is just a waste of time, unless Angzi transfers the ball in a large area. Angzi can naturally transfer the ball in a wide range, but it is easy to make a mistake in transferring the ball in a wide range, and James Anderson, who is open on the other side, is also running on both sides, hesitating to leave this position and run to the other side to catch it. Therefore, Angzi was caught in a dilemma, and he finally chose resolute singles. Facing Marion with his back, he withdrew a little outside. Marion also followed, while Dale Import stayed in place. Although he did not follow, he also looked at Angzi, who was holding the ball, from the inside. Angzi withdrew to the outside line, and the offensive time was running out. After thinking about it, he still chose to break through without much change. The outside line only made a fake move, and Angzi squeezed Marion into it. Dale Import waited aside, seeing Angzi break through, and immediately double-teamed over again. At this time, Angzi's 96-point breakthrough showed its power. In the high speed, he made a rapid change of direction, swayed Sean Marion, and then faced Dale Import. Double defense. Angzi still seems to be stuck in the middle distance. Everyone thinks that Angzi will take a shot, because this position is Angzi's last chance. However, between the sparks and flints, Angzi patted the ball twice, twisting his ankle, another change of direction. An exclamation sounded from the sidelines. They found that Angzi's series of breakthroughs were a bit unlike Angzi. They saw the shadow of Allen Iverson. After the second change of direction, Angzi passed Dalem Potter in an exclamation, and then it was simple. Throwing away Dalem Bird, rushed into the inside and finished it easily. A change in high-speed motion. When did Angzi's breakthrough evolve? Powerful. Angzi with a breakthrough? Unimaginable. In contrast, Angzi's final layup did not appear to be a bright spot, but the successive changes before it really surprised everyone, including the fans on the sidelines and Brett Brown. It's not that Brett Brown has never seen Angzi's breakthrough, but Brett Brown has never seen such continuous changes in high-speed motion. At this moment, Angzi has used it, and Brett Brown can only be attributed to Angzi's I already had such a breakthrough ability to change direction, but none of his previous opponents could make Angzi use such a breakthrough. After all, continuous high-speed change of direction would hurt my knee. Angzi scored a breakthrough, and the point difference became 17 points. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 442. The Mavericks attacked and Angzi faced Monta Ellis. Ellis' performance in this game was also average. Under Angzi's defense, Ellis has only scored 8 points on 3 of 9 shots. However, the Mavericks relied on Dirk Nowitzki and Sean Marion, as well as the performance of Dewan Blair on the bench to get a big lead. The Mavericks' goal was still the same. Jose Calderon took control of the front court and then directly passed the ball to Dirk Nowitzki. Nowadays played Gasol in singles. Since the beginning of the 10th season, Nowadays has been playing every time. Can beat Gasol, this time is no exception. The first 3 quarters have used too much Golden Rooster independence, ignoring Gasol's defensive scoring. This time, Nowitzki took the ball and feinted with the ball, attracted a defensive ball and gave it to the other side. After Jose Calderon received the ball, he held the ball again, cut into the penalty area and dropped the ball with a scream. The point difference returned to 19 points. Sean Livingston's defense was a bit soft and he couldn't defend it. The 76ers immediately served in the backcourt and shot a wave of fast offenses. The ball was still Angzi. The Mavericks' defense is still the same, defensive expansion, hoping to control Angzi beyond the three-point line. However, N11 also learned his skills. He changed direction directly outside the three-point line, squeezed Marion away, and then faced Monta Ellis double team. N11 chose to play with his back, hitting twice, and moved into the three-point line. Marion rushed over, trying to grab the basketball in N11's hand. N11 hit directly, then turned his back and squeezed Monta Ellis again to make a breakthrough. There was a scene of Angzi 1-on-2 on the court, and there was an uproar on the sidelines of this feat. But soon, N11 showed with practical actions that he is not either. After a while, under the pressure of 2 defenders, N11 also became unstable in his dribble. Once again avoiding Marion's steal attempt, Angzi held the ball with both hands and passed it. At this time, the Mavericks' defense has been disrupted by Angzi. So this pass directly gave an opportunity. The mid-range Gasol adjusted his shot after catching the ball, and with a scream, he narrowed the difference to 17 points again. The Mavericks were not to be outdone. The King Dino found an opportunity, also shot in the middle distance, and also entered with a scream. Then, this kind of interaction lasted for a few minutes, but he didn't move. The difference is like a stubborn stain that can't be removed at all. At this time, the washing powder needs to be changed. It's just that Brett Brown doesn't have many methods now. The Mavericks are not a bad team. The 76ers offense is fine, but the problem is defense. Then the problem came again. The 76ers defense is quite good now, but the Mavericks outside team is not very good defensively and is prone to vacancies. So after thinking about it, Brett Brown called a timeout. Emphasized the defense. But after this timeout, Brett Brown also had little confidence in the team's win. The Mavericks are in good condition. It is too difficult to chase 19 points in a single quarter. So the game reached the 6th minute of the 4th quarter, the point difference still did not change much, has been hovering between 17 points, 18 points, 19 points, Brett Brown directly chose to substitute and gave up the game. In the end, the 76ers lost 112-124 at home to the Mavericks. In the first game of the arrival of the new aide, they did not play smoothly, but the integration of the new aide was not too problematic. Omer Asik scored 5 points, 8 rebounds and 1 block, and his performance was not bad. Another new aide from the Rockets, Troy Daniels, also made a 3-pointer. On the contrary, the veteran Antoine Jamison, the offensive end is not too dazzling performance, the defensive end has not yet exploded Marion. After this battle, Brett Brown also confirmed the team's new rotation. 3 days later, when the 76ers played against the Bucks at home, Brett Brown had already established a 9-man rotation system. Point guards Mkaway and Sean Livingston, shooting guards Angzi and James Anderson, small forwards Jack Lauder and Francisco Garcia, and insiders Cole Aldridge, Omer Asik and Pau Gasol. The main playing time will be divided among the 9, and other players will also get some playing time, but not too much. After determining the rotation, the 76ers began to run in. Against the Bucks, there was no surprise in this game. The Bucks' record this season was only 10 wins and 45 losses. They went to the lottery area early. Facing the 76ers, the Bucks did not have much fighting spirit. The 76ers in the first quarter of the game relying on Angzi's momentum to take the lead, and Mkaway's comeback also brought a new core to the 76ers' second team, after leading. The 76ers then gradually expanded their lead and finally won a victory at home with a 130-110. After this victory, the 76ers' record has also become 36 wins and 20 losses. 2 days later, the 76ers continued to play at home, but this time, they unexpectedly lost. In the face of the Magic, the 76ers let the Magic score a 6-man score in double figures, and the 3 scored 20-plus data. 117-98 lost the game. In the 2 games after losing to the Mavericks, the 76ers had 1 win and 1 loss, and considering that neither of their opponents are too strong, this record is obviously not good. The biggest problem exposed in the 2 games was defense. The winning game allowed the opponent to get 110 points, and the losing game also lost 117 points. Obviously there was a problem with defense. However, it is precisely because of the defensive problem that the 76ers did not worry too much. Because the team changed to a new center, Pau Gasol did not come for a long time. The defense needs a longer time to run in. The run-in is completed. After that, the defense will always return to normal. After playing the Magic, the games in February 2014 are all over. In the first game in March, the 76ers challenged the Wizards away, but the 76ers lost again. They allowed Trevor Ariza to score 40 points and John Wall to score 17 assists. Finally, the Wizards scored in double figures and scored 122 points. The 76ers themselves also scored 118 points. In the end, he lost only 4 points. After losing to the Wizards, the 76ers ushered in a wave of 2-game losing streak, and the Heat also changed their state of staggering before the All-Star game. After Courtney Lee was traded on the trade deadline, they won all the way, and the gap between the 76ers and the Heat was again enlarged. The 76ers are still third in the Eastern Conference, with a record of 36 wins and 22 losses. The Bulls, fourth in the Eastern Conference, are 32 wins and 26 losses. The second half of the season is in a hot state and gradually narrowed the gap. They are still 4 wins away from the 76ers. If 76 people continue to lose, the Bulls still have a good chance to catch up. On March 2, the 76ers ushered in a back-to-back battle. In this game, they finally adjusted their defense. They defeated the Magic 96-81, completed their revenge, ended their two-game losing streak, and improved their record to the same time. 37 wins and 22 losses. And this record also indicates that the 76ers are about to lock a place in the playoffs. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 443. After the end of the continuous back-to-back, the 76ers returned to Philadelphia to take a rest. Angzi also took advantage of this time to meet with Nike's top executives. Angzi's sneaker contract was about to expire. Li Ning was the first to find it, followed by Under Armour. Li Ning had a 10-year-long contract and the price was higher, while Under Armour had a 5-year contract and the price was twice as low. Angzi has never made a decision. Now, Nike, the leader of the NBA sneaker industry, can't help it. He sent Dong Wei, Nike's vice president of China, sincerely to negotiate a new sneaker contract with Angzi. Dong Wei, which sounds like a male name, is actually a strong woman. I called in the morning to meet with Angzi and arrived in Philadelphia in the afternoon. Under the leadership of Ivor Clark, he approached the door directly. Then, Angzi saw this strong woman, a thin woman in her 30s, wearing a little yellow coat, and sitting in front of Angzi. They are also Chinese. One is a big star in the NBA and the other is a regional executive in Nike. When the two met, they naturally talked about hometown. Dong Wei's hometown is in eastern Guangdong, and Angzi's memory is almost the capital, so after a chat, there was nothing to tell. After thinking about it, Dong Wei said directly, "Xiaoyan, I am not going to be in circles anymore. You are also an old player who has been in the NBA for 2 or 3 years. You should also understand about the shoes. I came here. The company's commission, I'll talk to you about the sneaker contract." N11 nodded and looked at Dong Wei. "I won't say much about our Nike's advantages, just say one thing. Nike is the leader in the basketball shoe industry. Neither Adidas nor Under Armour has the capital to compare with us, especially in terms of technology. Nike's basketball shoes are top-notch, and Nike's air cushioned shoes are the strongest in the entire industry." Listening to Dong Wei's introduction, Angzi nodded in his heart. Technically speaking, Nike does have an advantage, but Adidas also has an ultralight technical advantage, so Angzi also feels that Nike's technical advantages are not as good as they thought. Great, everything depends on the specific contract terms. Therefore, after introducing Nike's advantages, Dong Wei began to talk specifically about the conditions Nike is willing to offer. "What do you think about the contract?" Dong Wei asked Angzi for his opinion. Angzi is not a fool, on the contrary, he is also a good individual. Dong Wei asked this sentence, which means that Nike has a lot of plans for Angzi, so Angzi is not polite, and Dalala put forward all his requirements. "First, I hope that the number of years will be shorter." Dong Wei nodded. "Secondly, none of the conditions that match my current worth is missing." The second article Angzi said is relatively broad, but to sum it up, it is custom sneakers, personal logos, etc. cannot be missing. Finally, in terms of the amount, I hope it will be at least the market price. Angzi guessed that Nike's offer might not be too high, or even higher than Under Armour. After all, Nike is the industry's leader and does not need to spend high prices to dig star players. Dong Wei nodded again, and after listening to all Angzi's requests, he wrote and painted on a piece of paper, and then handed it to Angzi. What is written on the paper is the contract offer that Nike is willing to give. The 6-year contract has an annual average of $20 million. Seeing this, Angzi was a little moved. This offer is the same as Under Armour's amount, and it is 1 year longer, but considering Nike's technical advantages, this extra year is not unbearable. Take a look at the standard configuration conditions for players such as customized sneakers and personal logos. Therefore, in Angzi's mind, Nike's offer has climbed to the first place. First Nike, second Li-Ning, third Under Armour. However, Angzi did not directly agree. He tilted his head and pretended to think for a while, and then said, "Ms. Dong, this contract is very good, but compared with other sneaker brands, the advantage is not big, so I still want to consider a few more days." Dongwei nodded to express his understanding, and then stopped mentioning the shoe contract, and began to talk about domestic matters. In the chat, Nike's marketing advantages are always mentioned intentionally or unintentionally. Indeed, Nike compares Adidas, the technical advantage is not as big as imagined, but the marketing advantage is not small. After chatting for a while, Dongwei left. After leaving, Ivo Clark said something that made Angzi feel very reasonable. And, Nike's marketing advantage is not that important. You are Chinese. Without Nike, you would have a vast market. So next time I talk about it, ignore the impact of marketing. What Ivo Clark said is very reasonable. Marketing are Angzi's natural advantages. Thinking of this, Angzi suddenly felt that since he has such a big advantage, why not just make his own branded sneakers? With this idea in mind, Angzi immediately brought it up. "Yuvo, then, what do you think? How about creating a sneaker brand by myself?" "Create it yourself?" Ivo Clark hesitated for a moment, didn't dare to answer. Creating a brand by myself involved too many things, and Ivo Clark didn't dare to say anything. It happened that Abby was also nearby. Angzi looked at Abby and asked Abby's opinion. "I think it's okay. There are many benefits to create a brand by myself, but the biggest question is, where does the technology of sneakers come from?" Although Angzi has no mature ideas about the technology of sneakers, there are general ideas. Technology can be acquired. There should be a lot of small American brands. You can buy one. As long as technology, Ivo, that's it. I want to create my own sneaker brand. You can help me find a professional manager to take care of this matter. In addition, find a team to design the logo of the personal brand first. What about the name? The name of the brand? The name of the brand is simple, just call it and dot. Okay, no problem, I will do this as soon as possible. Just do as he thinks of it. Angzi arranged things all at once, and Ivo Clark nodded, and he should be busy again. Angzi took advantage of the rest and stayed at home for 2 days, and the plan of creating Man continued. Then, when Angzi was about to embark on a road trip to the west, an exclamation came from the bathroom. Angzi was taken aback. After rushing in, she only saw Abby slowly lifting a pregnancy test stick. 2 red lines were displayed on the pregnancy test stick, that is, 2 bars. Angzi guessed something, but was not sure. "Well, what do the 2 red lines mean?" Abby blushed and looked at Angzi. "I have it." Angzi showed a look of surprise, then hugged Abby directly and cheered loudly. To be continued. Faster updates are all in. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-san Buletinji. Chapter 444. Abby was pregnant. Before heading to the west to start the road trip, Angzi took Abby to the hospital for a check. After confirming this, the two went out for a Western meal and celebrated. Of course, another call was made to Phoenix to report. It just so happened that the next round of the 76ers road trip, Abby decided to go to Phoenix with the 76ers to stay for a while. So Abby followed the 76ers plane and flew to Oklahoma City. The opponent in the first game of the Western Conference road trip is the Thunder. For the 76ers, who have been unstable in the recent past, this will obviously be a tough fight. It will not be good news for the 76ers, because they are likely to change from a defeat began this wave of road trips to the West. The Thunder this season is very strong, almost comparable to the Thunder which still had 3 minors in the 11-12 season, because Dewey's second minor has returned from injury and is in good condition. Reggie Jackson also won because of Westbrook's injury. There are few opportunities, so great progress has been made. All in all, Durant, Westbrook and Reggie Jackson have formed a new three young masters. Although Westbrook and Reggie Jackson have a positional conflict, the problem is not particularly big for each starter and one substitute. And in terms of pure strength, the Thunder is higher than the 76ers. Therefore, for the 76ers, this game is still quite difficult. On March 4, 2014, US time, Chesapeake Energy Arena, the visiting team's locker room, Brett Brown looked through the tactical manual and discussed the tactics of the game with the coaching staff. What is the current weakness of Thunder? Outside defense. In this game, Sabos Forosa is out of the game due to injury. They don't have a good one defense player on the outside line to allow Ankito to play singles with the ball. On the inside, Sergi Ibaka and Ste with the existence of Ben Adams, we are not good at focusing on the attack. Then the tactical core is determined, and more offensive outside. Brett Brown delineated the first one. What about defensively? Defensively, let and defend Westbrook, Lloyd Pierce proposed. Another defensive coach frowned. What about Kevin Durant? Leave it to Claude, he should be alone. Brett Brown nodded, agreeing, let's do it then. Therefore, before the game, Brett Brown determined the game's play, focusing on outside offense and defense. Angzi defended Westbrook, and Jack Lauder defended Durant. Before the game, Brett Brown announced the starting lineup. Nkaway has already made a comeback and played two substitutes. This game also returned to the starting line. Angzi continued to serve as the shooting guard. The small forward position was Jack Lauder and the inside was Paul. The European combination of Gasol and Omer Asik. At the scene of the game, although the players of the two teams have not yet played, although this is just an ordinary regular season, the fans of Oklahoma City do not want to miss the seemingly heavyweight matchup. Therefore, the game has not yet started. It was full of fans. The Thunder came out first, and there was cheers in the arena. After playing, Durant waved to the sidelines, and then started shooting training with his teammates. Subsequently, the 76ers also appeared, but the 76ers were greeted by boos. The commentators for this game were Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr. They sat down in the commentary booth and heard the 76ers booed by the fans. Counting out, Angzi is also the old enemy of the Oklahoma City fans. Steve Kerr thought of Angzi's 2 years with the Spurs, and then said, Angzi played for the Spurs for 2 years, and the Thunder were eliminated in consecutive playoffs. Angzi was always able to limit Kevin Durant. The fans of Oklahoma City may already have fresh memories of Angzi. Reggie Miller also smiled and nodded, yes, but after leaving the Spurs, Angzi has also entered the ranks of superstars. There are still many highlights of this game. It is the former blue-collar Angzi leading the new team to defeat the old opponent. The Thunder, or both show off less, and lead the Thunder in revenge, is still unknown. Although the Thunder's record is better, after the 76ers were traded for Pau Gasol and Omer Asik, their strength should not be underestimated. The state of the previous few games was unstable and it should be just a matter of running in. If this game runs in taking shape, for the Thunder, this game will also be a difficult game. Yes, after the 76ers were traded for Pau Gasol and Omer Asik, they became a balanced team inside and outside. There are star players inside and outside. The team structure is more reasonable than that of the Thunder. If it really works well, I am optimistic about the 76ers winning. The two commentators were optimistic about the 76ers who were unstable during this period of time. The 76ers smelled of poisoned milk. Soon, the two teams debuted. The 76ers starting lineup was the starting lineup previously arranged by Brett Brown, and the Thunder's starting lineup changed because of Sabos Forosa's injury. The point guard is still Russell Westbrook, and the shooting guard is Karen Butler. Karen Butler has just been bought out by the Bucks and then joined the Thunder as a free agent. This game is also his first time in the Thunder. In the game, because of Sabos Forosa's injury, Karen Butler got the chance to start. The small forward is still Kevin Durant, the power forward Serge Ibaka, and the center is the newly promoted rookie center Steven Adams. The referee walked to the center of the court holding the basketball, and Asik and Steven Adams jumped the ball. With a beep, the basketball flew over the arena. Asik jumped up and won the jump ball. The 76ers advanced, Angzi held the ball to the front court, and his teammates also fell into position. As soon as Angzi reached the three-point line, Pau Gasol withdrew, referring to the high position and giving Angzi a pick and roll. Angzi moved towards the pick and roll position with the ball. Karen Butler, who defended Angzi, and Serge Ibaka, who defended Gasol, chose to double-team Angzi and let Gasol go. Angzi didn't hesitate, and passed it to Gasol. Gasol didn't shoot directly. Instead, he cut into the basket. Steven Adams defended. On the other side, Jack Lauder made a quick run into the restricted area. Gasol passed the ball from behind, Jack Lauder received the ball and layup, and the basketball slipped into the hoop with a scream. Brett Brown clapped his hands on the sidelines. The 76ers' first offense was very good, running out of the team's desired tactics, continuous pick-and-roll screens and the star players holding the ball to attract defenses, gaining space for the role players. After the 76ers opened the goal, the Thunder's offense also began. Westbrook advanced to the front court with the ball. Durant and Karen Butler from the outside came to a cross screen. The 76ers instantly changed defense, and Durant played a big game. Receiving Westbrook's pass and shoot directly. Kawhi's height is not too short, but facing Durant's long arms, there is still nothing to do. With a scream, Durant made a dry jumper and scored 2 points. In the opening match, the two teams drew 2:2 and the game continued. To be continued. Mobile phone, please visit